Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Students, how are you all? I hope you all are fine. Take care of yourself and your family in this tough time. Now coming to the topic of this video, the topic that we are going to discuss today is programmed instructions. Now, in today's time of knowledge explosion, the subject matter to be taught has increased many folds. At the same time, population explosion is there, due to which number of students have increased tremendously. So the problem is we have to teach number of students at the same time, and the content to be taught is also very large. Now, in order to tackle this problem, we need to invent some new methods of teaching or providing instructions, as this problem can't be solved in the traditional classrooms with the traditional ways of teaching. And programmed instruction is one of them. Now, first of all, let us try to understand the term programmed instructions. It is made up of two words, programmed, instructions. Instructions, as you all know, it is providing directions. So, providing directions or providing instructions, but that in a very planned way, because programmed means to carry out any task in the proper planning, in steps or proper sequences. So programmed instruction is a method of providing instructions to the students with the well-planned sequential step-by-step method. Now, further we'll discuss it in detail. Now, first of all we'll try to take an overview of this topic. What we do in the program instructions? Actually, what we do is, we take the subject matter, we divide it into some smaller units or parts. Each part is called frames. Now, what do we have in a frame? In a frame, we have a subject matter which is followed by a question, which should be answered by the students. And these frames are sequenced in the logical way. Logical means they move from the simpler to the complex one. We start from the known background, which is already known to the student, and gradually we move towards the more difficult frames. Now, student has to answer the question given in the frame. Student may answer it in two ways. Either he may give the correct answer or he may give the wrong answer. In both ways, student is benefited. How? Because if he gives correct answer, he gets motivation, he gets positive reinforcement, he gets understanding of subject matter, and he moves further. But if he gives the wrong answer, then it gives us teachers a chance to detect the problem faced by the student. Where the point is, where he is facing the problem. By detecting or diagnosing the problem, we can provide the remedy to the students. Now, these frames are logical as well as psychological, because they cater the interest, capacities, capabilities of the students. Appropriate reinforcement is given to them. Now, when we start a program, we check the entry behavior of the student. What is his present level? From there we start the program. Every program has instructional objectives written in the behavioral terms that tells us what should be the learning outcome of that program, what is expected from the students after completing that program. Then at the end of the module or at the end of the program, we have a criteria test that evaluates the student's terminal behavior, whether it matches with the stipulated objectives or not. So this is our whole planning of the programmed instructions. Now, the further topic we'll do it in detail with the help of a PowerPoint presentation. Now let's see it. So students, today's topic, programmed instructions. Now in the next slide we will define it.
Definitions of program instruction is given by various educationists. The first one is by Smith and Murray. He says that program instruction is a process of arranging the material to be learned into a series of sequential steps that I've already explained to you. Usually it moves the student from a familiar background into a complex and new set of concepts, principles and understanding. So we always start from the familiar, known level and we go to the more complex or the unknown subject matter. So while going through the whole program, student learns the new set of principles, concepts and their understanding is made. Now Ajay, he says that program instruction is a systematic step-by-step self-instructional program. Now the new word that has been included is self-instructional program. Self-instruction means that the students may himself use this program for his own learning. So this program may be used by the teacher to provide instructions or it may be used by the learner himself for self-learning. It is always aimed to ensure the learning of the stated behavior. That is, every program has some instructional objectives which are written in the form of terminal behavior, or the terminal behavior is the desired behavior that we want to accomplish after the completion of the program. So program instruction, systematic, step-by-step, self-instructional, and it always ensures the attainment of the stated or desired learning outcomes. In the next slide, now we have the characteristics of this program. In the characteristics of program instruction, the first one is objective specification. That is, every program has some objectives that are always written in the form of the behavioral outcomes. What the student will be able to do after the completion of program, they are predetermined. So every program has objectives. We always check the entry behavior of the students before starting the program, and we have the criteria test at the end in order to evaluate the accomplishment of the objectives. Then second one is that it is highly individualized. That is, each program is for one student. Each student go through a program according to his own capacities, capabilities. He does not wait for anybody else. He can do it at his own pace. So it is highly individualized. Third one is logical sequence of material. I've already explained it to you. Subject matter is divided into smaller units called frames, and the frames are always sequenced in the logical form, that is from simpler to the complex one. Next is based on psychological principles. Now various psychological principles are involved in program instruction. First one being, always start from the known background. That is, we always go from known to the unknown. Why? Because known background creates interest. Interest gives motivation, and motivation helps the student to learn. Also, we give reinforcement, positive reinforcement that helps in the motivation. Next one is there is interaction between learner and the program. The place of the teacher has been taken by the program itself. Now it's the program who is teaching the learner. So the interaction will also be between learner and the program. It's the program who presents the subject matter. It's the program who gives the question. It's a program who evaluates the question and provides the reinforcement. Learner only respond to the question given in the frame. Next is immediate knowledge of results. Why? In each frame, a question is given. To each question, student has to respond, and to every response, confirmation should be given immediately. Why? Because every student has the urge of curiosity. in order to satisfy that urge, we need to provide immediate confirmation of the result, whether his result is wrong or right. And this confirmation is provided in the immediate next frame. Then self-pacing. As I've already told you, self-pacing means that no student have to wait for someone else, or no student has to speed up his speed to match with the other students, as it usually happens in our traditional classroom. So it is based on the principle of self-pacing. Then constant evaluation. In every frame, the question is answered by the student and it is evaluated by the program. So constant evaluation also follows the program. Now the more characteristics, the next one is diagnostic feature. So the question gives us a chance to detect the problems which the students are facing. So we can detect or diagnose the problems of the students, the particular point at which student feels the problem. So we can diagnose and we can provide a remedy to those problems. Next is continuous efforts by the learner. A program can be successful only and only if the learner responds to the question given in the frame. If he doesn't, then the program can't continue. So learner has to be active and he has to respond each and every question. Next is self-correcting feature. So to the question, if the student answers wrongly, then in the next frame, correct answer is given. So it provides a chance to the learner to correct himself. So it has the self-correcting feature. Next, automatic encouragement. In each frame, the question, reinforcement, provides the automatic encouragement to the students for further learning. Whenever a student gets the right answer, that means he encounters the success, and success always leads to the motivation. We always try to make the frames in such a way that students encounter maximum success in them. Next is guaranteed comprehensibility. That is, after the completion of subject matter, there is 100% guarantee that student will understand the subject matter completely, because the frames are self-explanatory. They are so simple that they can be understood by the student very well. Next is responses emphasized. That is, to every question, student has to give response. Only then he can move to the next frame. The next is special methods of responding. That is, in every style of programming, we have linear programming, branching, mathematics, etc. In every style of programming, there is a unique method of responding. For example, in linear programming, the responding style is constructive. In branching style, it is of discriminative nature, and in mathematics, it is in the form of an exercise. So, we need to have a special method of responding in each style of programming. Now, the next slide shows the historical development of programmed instruction. That is, how the concept of programmed instruction has emerged in history. The concept is quite old. It was Socrates, the Greek philosopher. He is called the first programmer. He developed a program on the topic of geometry, which was recorded by his student Plato. So, the concept is not new, it's quite old. Then, in 1912, Thorndike, the famous psychologist, he suggested that we can develop a self-instruction material based on psychological principles. And then came S.L. Presley in 1925. He invented a teaching machine. It was in the form of a rotating drum. It has some subject matter and question with options. If the student presses the right option, drum rotates and the new question is presented. Then came B.F. Skinner in 1954. With his stimulus response theory, he said that we can shape up the behavior of a student by giving a positive reinforcement to the student at each right step. So here he developed the linear style of programming, which is based on stimulus response theory. The subject matter and the question is stimulus. Response is given by the student. If response is right, he gets positive reinforcement, which helps in shaping his desired behavior. Then, next contribution was by Anne Crowder in 1955. He developed the famous branching style of programming. Here the question used were multiple type questions. That is, the answers provided by the students were of discriminative nature. Next was Robert Major in 1960. He developed instructional objectives in behavioral terms. That is, for every program, objectives are must and that too should be written in the behavioral terms. Next was Thomas F. Gilbert. He developed the third style of programming, mathematics. It deals with the psychomotor domain, and here the frames are in the form of some exercises. Then came Lawrence Strollo and Daniel Davis in 1965. They developed computer-assisted instruction, CAI. With its help, now it became possible to present the program instruction through computers also. The next slide shows the principles of program instruction. Peter Piper in 1965 gave the following 5 basic principles. They were, the first one is principle of small steps. Yes, subject matter should be presented in small steps. Subject matter should be small. Why? Because if it is small, it can be understood by the students quite easily. That is, they will be able to answer the question in the right way. That is, they will encounter the success, which will help in motivating the students. So, this principle says that failure leads to demotivation and success leads to the motivation. That is why we have kept the size of our frames very small. Next one is principle of immediate correction. And I have already explained to you. This is to satisfy the urge of curiosity of the students and to motivate and to provide reinforcement to students. We should immediately confirm whether his answer is right or wrong. Next is principle of active responding. Active on the part of students. Student should have to be active. He should have to respond to every question in order to move ahead. Next, principle of self-pacing. Every student, he will be doing the program at his own speed or at his own pace. That is, now there is no time limit. He can take his time and can complete the program. Last one is principle of student testing. So at each step, at each frame, students' evaluation is being done and with help in attaining the desired outcome of the program. In this slide, the principles of programmed instructions given by Edward F. O'Day has been given. So he categorized the principles into 2 categories, mandatory principles and optional principles. The difference between these 2 categories is mandatory principles are important as well as essential. We need these principles to frame any kind of program. Optional principles are important, but these are not essential. In the mandatory principles, further 3 principles are given. First one is principle of objective specification. That is, every program has its instructional objectives that are to be achieved and that are written in the behavioral terms. Second one is empirical testing. In order to develop authentic, real, very authentic or a valid and reliable program, we need to empirically test. And this empirical testing is done in 3 phases. The first phase is of individual tryout. The rough draft of the program is administered on a single student. The reactions of that student are reported, and according to those reactions, the necessary modifications are made. Then, the modified version of program is administered on a small group of students of that level, and then again their reactions are recorded. According to those reactions, again modifications are made, and then in the last phase, that is field tryout, the program is administered on the whole class or all the sections of that class in a particular school or in a particular district, and then students' reactions, responses, error rate, etc. is checked. Statistical treatment is done, and then after going through all these phases, our final program is ready, which can be administered on any student of that class or of that level. Now we come to the optional principles. Optional principles are again of three types. Number one is overt responding. Now what is overt responding? Whenever a student gives a response which is observable or which can be measured, then that response is known as overt response. So a student has to give his overt response in order to move further in a program. Then comes immediate feedback. As we have already done, students' answer should be evaluated and the immediate confirmation of results should be made. Next is principle of small step size. It is also the same as we have done earlier. Subject matter should be presented in the small steps to increase the success rate and decrease the error rate. So this was the last slide of today's topic. In the next video, we will discuss this topic further. Thank you so much.